She texted me, "At my ex's house, don't worry." So I told my girlfriend to pack her bags and never come back. Cheating story. It was a regular Friday evening. I just finished a late shift at the hospital, triple overtime that week, and all I wanted was to eat something greasy and fall asleep on the couch. Ashley had told me at lunch she'd go out with coworkers for a casual drink. Nothing crazy, she said. I believed her. I trusted her. Or at least I thought I did. Around 10:47 p.m., while I was warming leftovers, my phone buzzed. One notification on the screen. I read it and stared. "At my ex's house, don't worry." That short line hit harder than I expected. I read it again. The punctuation, the casual tone, the "don't worry." It felt deliberately clipped, like a shrug typed into pixels. I laughed at first. I told myself it was a typo. Maybe she meant a friend's house. Maybe autocorrect had murdered the sentence. My hands kept the phone close, though. The rational explanations and the small, ugly ones were fighting on equal ground. I called. No answer. I texted, "What do you mean? Who's at his house?" Nothing. The blue bubbles stayed silent. My mind started doing its own work. I pictured the mundane images, her in heels on a porch, laughing with old stories. Then darker ones, two silhouettes on a couch, a hand brushing a shoulder, a look that means more than friendship. The imagination isn't fair. It doesn't wait for facts. It builds a story to fill the sound of silence. I paced around the tiny living room. My apartment had that odd, cheap comfort of a place I was allowed to be tired in. The TV played an old sitcom on mute. I couldn't focus on the flicker. The message sat like a weight in my chest. I tried to slow my breath. I told myself she'd explain, that she'd snap back a silly follow-up, maybe a couple of laughing emojis. But I knew something else under that thought. I had that small, private fear that had been simmering since we'd first dated. Her past wasn't entirely closed. We'd been together almost 2 years. We'd had plans. We'd talked about moving in someday, about a dog, about weekend trips. We'd fought about little things, the laundry, the way she left dishes, but we'd always made up. Trust had been a quiet thing between us, so ordinary I barely noticed it. That text felt like someone had taken a marker and scribbled a question mark over everything. Hours passed. I kept checking my phone. I read the message again, then threw the phone onto the couch. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to be calm. I wanted her to walk through the door and say it was a stupid misunderstanding. The apartment stayed the same. The clock kept moving. At 12:30 a.m. the phone buzzed. For a moment I thought I might breathe again. Relax. I just bumped into him, and some of us came over to hang out. I didn't want you to overthink, so I said don't worry. I stared. The word relax in a text is the worst kind of patronizing. The message admitted the thing I'd feared. She was at his house, but said it like it was a small errand. She had walked into the place I'd been told never to worry about and turned it into a sentence. What I felt then wasn't only anger. It was the sudden discovery that two people can occupy the same relationship and live with different maps of what's okay. She had a map where this was harmless. I had a map where it was not. I sat on the couch, the cheap fabric sticking under my skin, and realized the night was just beginning. Confusion turned into panic. Why would she be there? Why didn't she mention it? Was she just hanging out, or was there something else? And the "don't worry" line, was it meant to soothe me or mock me? I called. No answer. I texted, "Why are you at your ex's house?" Nothing. Silence felt enormous. By midnight, I was pacing. Every scenario ran on repeat. Had she lied about coworkers? Was she comfortable enough with him to crash there? Each thought hit like a small knife. I tried to calm down. I called a friend. He said, "People bump into exes. Not everything is a betrayal." He meant to help. His words didn't stop the pit in my stomach. I thought about calling the ex. It was an impulse I erased. Confrontation would be messy and immature. Still, the urge to know burned. At 2 a.m., I sat on the edge of my bed, the phone warm against my palm. The apartment felt smaller. The TV flickered. My mind kept circling the same questions. The memories of our months together, movie nights, stupid arguments, lazy mornings, stiffened into something fragile. Trust is built slowly. A single careless act can knock it down. At 7 a.m., my phone finally buzzed. "Sorry. Fell asleep on the couch. We crashed. Didn't want to wake you. Calm down." Her text admitted being at his place, and then asked me to quiet my worry. It read like a patch, not an apology. It didn't explain the silence or the choice. It didn't acknowledge how alone I'd felt. I typed and deleted messages. Ask and sound controlling. Stay quiet and feel dismissed. There were no good options. When she came home later, she acted casual, as if nothing had happened. "Morning," she said, hair messy, coffee in hand. No remorse. No urgency. Her ease felt like indifference. I asked where she'd been. "At my ex's," she said, shrugging. "We were with friends. It wasn't a big deal." "Not a big deal." I echoed. The phrase hit like a stone. She called me dramatic and rolled her eyes. Dismissal became the weapon she used. My hurt was reframed as a rationality. Over the next days, I noticed changes. She stayed late. She smiled at private messages. She grew defensive when I asked. Tags on social media showed her at parties, close to him. Each detail tightened the knot in my chest. It wasn't a single betrayal that broke me. It was a pattern of choices and the casual way she treated my concerns. Boundaries shifted without discussion. My role in her life felt optional. One night she didn't come back. I found a photo tagged to a house, her laughing next to him, his hand near her shoulder. To others it looked normal. To me, it was the moment the map of our relationship changed. When she finally returned, I didn't shout. I was quiet instead. "Pack your things," I said. She was shocked. "You can't be serious." "I am," I said. "You went to his house. You left me worried. You brushed it off." She insisted nothing happened and accused me of jealousy. But the argument was already over. The trust had split open. She left that day with a bag and a bitter look. 2 weeks later she texted, "I made a mistake. Can we talk?" In the quiet that followed, I replayed our timeline, looking for signs I had missed. The little things came forward. Her laugh, how she'd make tea when I was exhausted, the nights we mapped future plans with half-joking seriousness. Those memories didn't vanish, but they sat beside an unfamiliar fact. She had made a choice that evening without considering me. That distinction mattered more than her intentions. It meant our definitions didn't match anymore. I understood then that relationships aren't only about big betrayals. They break when small decisions ignore the other person's boundaries. I wanted someone who would protect what we had, not treat it casually. Saying goodbye felt like both punishment and relief. The silence after her message was louder than any argument. And here's the cruel part. Up until that night, I trusted Ashley. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. Nearly 2 years together. Road trips that ended with us laughing in gas station parking lots. Quiet nights with cheap wine and Netflix. Conversations about where we might live in a year, whether we'd get a dog, and if we were ready for something bigger. Those little talks meant something to me. They built a picture of us, a future worth fighting for. But that one text shattered all of it. It's wild how fragile trust really is. You spend months building it, one small moment at a time. You start to believe it's permanent, unshakable. Then 6 words, "At my ex's house. Don't worry." Tear through it like it was nothing. I stared at my phone for hours that night. Every time it lit up with nothing but the time, I felt more betrayed. I typed messages I couldn't send. "Why are you really there? Do you still want him? Am I just a placeholder until you decide what you want?" Each draft was angrier, more desperate. I deleted them all. Finally, at 12:30 a.m., the screen lit up again. Her message, "Relax. I just bumped into him, and some of us came over to hang out. I didn't want you to overthink, so I said don't worry. Relax." The word burned. She didn't explain. She didn't apologize. She didn't even seem to understand what she'd done. She expected me to swallow it like it was nothing. Like my reaction was the problem, not her choices. I read it again and again. I wasn't imagining things. She had confirmed it. She was at her ex's house. With friends, she claimed. But here's the thing. You don't just bump into an ex and then casually decide to spend the night there. Not if you care about your current relationship. Not if you respect it. And the way she framed it, like I was the one who needed to relax, like I was the one creating the issue, felt like a slap in the face. That wasn't reassurance. That was dismissal. I set the phone down, but my mind didn't stop. I tried to picture the scene. Ashley is sitting on a couch that used to be theirs, laughing at old inside jokes. Maybe his hand brushes her arm. Maybe her not moving away. That image lodged itself in my head, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake it. Sleep didn't come. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight. Every sound outside, cars on the street, a neighbor's TV, the creak of the apartment pipes, kept me awake. I checked my phone every 10 minutes, hoping she'd say she was leaving, that she was on her way home, that she realized how wrong it was. But nothing came. By 3 a.m., I knew something had changed. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a glimpse into how she valued me, or maybe how little. Because if she truly respected us, that text would never have been sent. She wouldn't have gone there in the first place. It's strange. The moment you realize the person you love is capable of hurting you in ways you never imagined, something inside you shifts. It's like seeing a crack in glass. No matter how much you try to ignore it, you can't unsee it. And every second that passes, the crack grows. I lay there until the first hints of morning crept through the blinds. My phone stayed silent. That night, I learned something I hadn't wanted to know. Trust doesn't end with a bang. Sometimes it just fades, one unanswered text at a time. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back. I typed out a dozen replies, my thumbs moving faster than my brain. Each message was a different shade of anger, confusion, or desperation. This isn't okay. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Do you still have feelings for him? Are you serious right now? Every time, I deleted them. None of it felt right. None of it felt like it would reach her. Finally, I forced myself to slow down. I took a breath, stared at the blinking cursor, and typed. Ashley, this isn't about me overthinking. It's about respect. Who goes to their ex's house and thinks it's fine? You need to come home. Now. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. And then nothing. Minutes dragged into hours. The clock glowed 1:15 a.m. My living room felt too quiet, too small. I sat on the couch with the TV muted, watching shadows shift across the walls. Every car that passed outside, I thought maybe it was her. Every time my phone buzzed with a random notification, I hoped it was her reply. It never was. By 2:30 a.m., the silence had become its own form of torture. I imagined her laughing in someone else's living room, ignoring me. I imagined her phone lighting up with my calls, her hand flipping it face down, choosing not to answer. The thought stung worse than anything else, that she chose not to respond. I barely slept. I might have closed my eyes for an hour, but it wasn't real rest. My body was restless, my head spinning. I kept checking the door, waiting for it to open, for her to stumble in and offer an explanation that made sense. But it never happened. By morning, something inside me had changed. The image I'd always held of Ashley, someone who loved me, who respected me, who would never cross certain lines, was gone. It wasn't anger anymore. It was realization. The girl I thought I knew was capable of this. She could text me from her ex's house at midnight, brush it off with a half-hearted excuse, and then disappear into silence while I sat at home, unraveling. And the worst part? She didn't seem to think any of it was wrong. I kept staring at that message on my phone. Relax. I didn't want you to overthink. As if the only problem was my reaction. As if the situation itself wasn't a problem. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a poor choice of words. This was a glimpse into how she really saw me, how she saw us. Respect wasn't mutual. I stood in the kitchen, staring out the window at the empty street, and felt the weight of it sink in. Our relationship wasn't the same anymore. No amount of pretending would erase that. Because once you see the mask slip, you can't unsee it. That morning, I realized something else too. I wasn't just angry at Ashley. I was angry at myself. Angry that I was sitting there waiting for scraps of honesty. Angry that I was holding on to someone who had already shown me how little I mattered to her choices. I told myself if she walked through that door, I'd ask her one question. Why? But deep down, I already knew the answer wouldn't be enough. I woke up to the sound of the front door creaking open. The clock read just past 9 a.m. My body was heavy from the sleepless night, but the sound jolted me upright. Ashley walked in like it was any other Saturday morning. Hair messy, purse slung over her shoulder, phone in hand. She yawned, set her bag down, and said one word. Morning. That was it. No apology. No urgency. No trace of the storm she'd caused. Just a casual morning, like she'd been out grabbing coffee. I stared at her from the couch, my phone still in my hand, the text glowing on the screen. My jaw clenched. Where were you all night? My voice was low, but it carried weight. She blinked at me, annoyed more than guilty. I told you. I was at my ex's. We were with some friends. It wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal. That phrase echoed in my head like thunder. I slammed my phone on the table. The screen lit up, the 6 words still visible. You texted me this and disappeared all night. Do you seriously not see the problem? Ashley sighed, like I was being unreasonable. It was supposed to be harmless. I didn't want to lie to you, so I just told you where I was. That's better than hiding it, right? I laughed bitterly, a sharp sound that didn't feel like me. Better? You told me you were at your ex's house, and then ignored my calls all night. That's not honesty. That's torture. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. That word, dramatic. It sliced deeper than the text itself. She wasn't just dismissing what happened. She was dismissing me. My pain. My worry. My place in her life. The conversation spiraled. I demanded to know why she thought it was okay. She threw back accusations. I was insecure, jealous, and controlling. She framed it like I was the one poisoning the relationship, like her choices were irrelevant compared to my reaction. At one point she crossed her arms, leaned against the counter, and said, You really need to get over this. If you can't, then maybe we shouldn't be together. Her words knocked the wind out of me. It wasn't even a defense, it was a threat. I stared at her, searching for any sign she still cared about what we had. But her body language told me everything. She wasn't fighting to keep us together. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't scared to lose me. She was indifferent. And that terrified me more than the text itself. Because when someone stops caring, the fight is already over. For the rest of the morning, I tried to reason with her. I told her it wasn't about insecurity, it was about boundaries. Respect. Choices. But every word out of her mouth was the same refrain. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting. Her calm dismissal wasn't soothing, it was cold. Like she had already made peace with the idea of life without me. And I was just the one catching up. I realized then that this wasn't about a single night, a single text. It was about something deeper. She had checked out of our relationship long before I got that message. And now, standing in our kitchen, she wasn't even pretending to put the pieces back together. The Ashley I thought I knew, the one who planned a future with me, who laughed with me in grocery aisles, who whispered about moving in together, wasn't here anymore. All I had left was a stranger in her place, calling me dramatic. For the rest of that morning, we circled the same argument. Me, asking why she thought it was okay. Her, repeating that it was no big deal. I told her respect mattered. She told me I was paranoid. I said relationships needed boundaries. She said I was insecure. Round and round. No progress. No answers. At one point, I asked her straight out, would you be fine if I spent the night at my ex's place and just sent you a text saying don't worry? She didn't even pause. That's different. Different. The word clung to me. She wasn't even trying to be fair. She had her rules, and I was expected to live by them. After that morning, things shifted. She didn't storm out or end things outright, but her behavior changed. She was colder, more distant. Her affection thinned out, like someone slowly turning off a faucet. And then I started noticing patterns. Ashley was glued to her phone more than before. She'd smile at messages she never shared with me. She'd angle the screen away when I walked by. Her laughter felt private, not shared. She started staying late at work. At first, it was once or twice a week. Then almost every night. The excuses grew vaguer. We had to finish a project. We grabbed food after. It ran late. Always said with a shrug, as if it wasn't worth details. When I asked questions, she'd get sharp. You don't trust me. You're paranoid. This relationship can't survive if you keep acting like this. The irony cut deep. She was the one crossing boundaries, but I was the one being painted as the villain. Then came the night, she didn't come home at all. No message. Nothing. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, phone in hand. I scrolled through Instagram, Facebook, and even Snapchat, searching for a clue. My chest felt heavy, my mind refusing to let go. And then I saw it. A friend of a friend had posted a photo from a house party. There she was. Ashley. She wasn't alone. She was standing right next to her ex. His hand rested casually on her shoulder, his grin wide. She looked relaxed, happy, smiling like she belonged there more than she belonged with me. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. My stomach felt hollow. That single image said more than any of her excuses ever could. When she finally came home the next afternoon, keys jingling like nothing was wrong, something inside me had gone quiet. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I didn't demand explanations. She'd only twist against me. I just looked at her and said, pack your things. She froze, her purse still hanging off her arm. What? You can't be serious. I didn't waver. I'm dead serious. You texted me from your ex's house and told me not to worry. You ignored me. You dismissed me. And now I see where your loyalty really is. So yes, I'm serious. Pack your things. For the first time, the mask slipped. Her face paled. Her lips parted, searching for words. She tried to backpedal. Wait. No, you're overreacting. It wasn't like that. Nothing happened between us. But her words didn't matter anymore. Because even if nothing physical had happened, the damage was already done. Trust once broken doesn't snap back into place. It shatters, leaving sharp edges that cut deeper every time you try to hold on. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, as she grabbed a suitcase. She muttered under her breath, called me dramatic again, said I was throwing away a good thing. But the truth was simple. She had thrown it away the second she typed, at my ex's house, don't worry. She left that afternoon with a suitcase in one hand and her phone in the other. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even look back. Her last words as she walked out the door were muttered under her breath. You're throwing away a good thing. The door shut, and the apartment went quiet. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange kind of peace. Not joy, not relief, just peace. Like the noise had finally stopped. The days after were heavy but clear. I went to work. I cooked for one. I answered friends' texts with short replies. At night, I sat on the same couch where I'd read her message, staring at the glow of the TV without really watching. But slowly, the weight shifted. I wasn't pacing anymore. I wasn't staring at my phone, waiting for her to come home. I wasn't imagining her laughter in someone else's living room. I was free from the constant question mark. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It did. It hurt to remember how she used to reach for my hand during movies. How she'd curl up next to me on cold nights. How we'd laugh about nothing until tears ran down our faces. But those memories didn't match the reality anymore. They belonged to someone who had stopped choosing me long before I told her to pack her things. 2 weeks passed. Then, late one night, my phone buzzed. A text. From her. I made a mistake. Please, can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen. For a second, the old reflex kicked in, the urge to reply, to hear her voice, to fix things. But then I thought about that night. The silence. The way she dismissed me. The photo of her with him. The way she called me dramatic while I was breaking. And I realized something. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. For the first time since all of this started, I didn't reply. And in that silence, I found closure. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.